The 2017 NFL draft class was one of the best we've seen over the past decade. Mahomes, Watson, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and you get the point. Well, this class is 5 years into their careers, and like we have throughout the series, it is time to grade the picks. We will be going in reverse order from picks 32 through 17, so we will be starting with Saints tackle Ryan Ramczyk and finishing with the Commanders defensive lineman Jonathan Allen. And there's 16 picks to grade, so without further ado, let's begin. And as previously said, we are starting with Saints right tackle Ryan Ramczyk. And the narrative of Pro Bowls means nothing represents Ryan to a T, as he has 0 Pro Bowls to his name, yet 3 total All-Pros. He is a monster, and I rarely use the word on this channel, but Ryan was a part of a legendary draft class, which of course was him, Marshon Lattimore, Alvin Kamara, and Marcus Williams in the later rounds. And 5 years later, Ryan, like teammate Marshon Lattimore got, this is an A+. Previously picked to Ryan was the second of 2 first-round picks the 49ers and their fan base would like to forget about. It was linebacker Reuben Foster, and he was trouble from the start, as he was kicked out of the NFL Combine, and as long as I've been following the NFL, he is the only player I remember getting kicked out of the Combine for character concerns. And Reuben was a player who I thought had A to A+ level talent, and his career was derailed due to himself, and he didn't last 2 full seasons in San Francisco. An F grade for Foster. TJ Watt, the Pittsburgh Steelers' pride and joy when the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, was the 30th pick, and he's been a pretty solid pick, I'd say, for them. There's certainly been worse first-round picks in the history of the Steelers franchise, and TJ only has 4 All-Pros, with 3 of them being first teams to his name, along with 4 Pro Bowls, and has only led the league in sacks and quarterback hits twice. He is one of the most feared players in football, and a Grand Slam pick, and an easy A+. The AFC North had back-to-back picks, as tight end David Njoku to the Browns was their 3rd pick of the night, and through 5 years, David has 148 catches and 1,750 receiving yards to his name, along with 15 receiving touchdowns. I understand he's had not great quarterback play at times, but as a former first-round pick, he has just 1 season over 500 receiving yards, and that is not good for being taken as high as he was. He's not a complete bust, but he's certainly not a hit either, and 5 years later, David gets a C-. Cowboys fans hate being reminded of this pick, which was Taco Charlton, because TJ Watt was selected just a few picks after him, and Taco is, not the player TJ is. He was released prior to his 3rd season being over with back in 2019, and in September of 2019 at that, so really just 2 years and a game into his career, and to this day has just 92 career tackles. He's been on 4 teams in 5 years, and for a first-round pick, this has bust written all over it, an F grade for Taco. Cornerback Tredavius White to the Buffalo Bills was selected previous to Taco, and in 5 years he has 2 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, with one of those being a first-team All-Pro back in 2019, and in a year where he co-led the league in interceptions with 6, and has been a huge part of the Buffalo Bills' restoration. There is some part of Bills Mafia that thinks if he was healthy this past postseason, they win the Super Bowl. The Bills prior to White's rookie season hadn't made the playoffs since 1999, and Trey has played a part in getting them back to the top of the NFL. And to be clear, they're not good solely because of Tredavius, but he has played a huge role in that. An A+ grade for White. Tack McKinley from UCLA was the Falcons' first-round pick, and he is most remembered for his fiery speech he gave shortly after being drafted, and how he promised his grandmother he was going to make it to the league, and credit to him because that's a hell of a promise to make. Tack had a 6-sack and a 7-sack season in his first 2 years, and has never been the same player from a production standpoint since. He was eventually released by the Falcons and signed with the Raiders during the 2020 season, and then was placed on injured reserve and never appeared in a game for them. He spent 2021 in Cleveland, where he recorded 2.5 sacks, and this pick 5 years later is a D. Jabril Peppers was picked 25 to the Cleveland Browns, and this is a tough pick to grade because he, along with guard Kevin Zeitler and a first-round pick, were eventually traded for Odell Beckham and Olivier Vernon, that trade would clearly be an F for the Browns in their return, and I do think Jabril would have been a very good player for this team. With the production in Cleveland he had, obviously will not look that good compared to the player he is now. Of course, the trade is not good as well, and 5 years later, the grade we give Jabril is a D, not because of the performance of him, but because of the trade and everything that ensued after his departure from the Browns. And this is a grade on the selection of Jabril, not everything else in between. Corner Garrett Conley to the Raiders is up. In 2017, like 2020, featured 2 Ohio State corners drafted in the first round, and Conley did not pan out for the Raiders like their 2020 first-round corner from Ohio State did not in Damon Arnett. Conley was traded to the Texans in 2019 for a third-round pick and is out of the league now. The main positive from this is the Raiders received at least a third-round back instead of nothing or flat-out releasing him like we've seen other teams do, and because of that, we'll give, instead of the F grade, we'll give it a D-. The New York Football Giants drafted former Pro Bowl tight end Evan Engram at 23, and I love tossing that in there because Engram, did make the Pro Bowl one time, and that was back in 2020, and Giants fans love to point out that he is not that good. Engram has 262 career receptions, 2,800 receiving yards, and 16 career receiving touchdowns over his first 5 years. He had his career best in receptions, yards, and touchdowns back in 2017 as a rookie with a 64, 722, and 6 stat line, and has not been the same since. Believe me, there's far worse tight ends you could draft in the first round than Engram, and he is now a Jag, and 5 years later we give this selection a C. Defensive end Charles Harris from the University of Missouri went to the Miami Dolphins, and Charles is on his third team in 5 years and was 3-0 with the Miami Dolphins. They traded him prior to his 4th season for just a 7th round pick. He had a bounce back year for Detroit this year, and I'm happy for his success personally, but this grade is on the Dolphins' 1st round pick, not the bounce back story of Charles Harris, and that grade is clearly an F. Linebacker Tredavius to the Lions is now up, and fun fact, while Jarad is currently a member of the Lions, he spent 2021 with the Jets and decided to come back. And I'm going to be honest here, the grade will not be good for Jarad because he played under Fat Matt, and that whole era is one of, many eras Lions fans would like to forget. But think about Sam Darnold under Adam Gase, but for the defensive side of the football. That's not far off from what Davis had during his first stint in Detroit. And Dan Campbell has been very vocal about the potential of Jarad in his defense, and I'd love to see him bounce back, but the grade from his 2017 through 2020 days with the Lions is a C-. Offensive tackle Garrett Bolles to the Broncos is up, and on the surface, this looked initially like a horrible pick. Why would Denver draft a 25-year-old offensive tackle in the first round unless they are 1,000,000% sure he will work out? And Bolles eventually did work out for them after a lot of struggle, and he was a second-team All-Pro player in 2020. I don't think this is an A-plus pick by any means, because again, there were some drawbacks to the selections, but it's obviously not a bad pick by any means, and 5 years later, we give it an A-. Tight end O.J. Howard from Alabama went to the Bucs at pick 19, and this was quite the slide at the time as O.J. was a very good prospect and he simply never panned out. He is now a member of the Bills Mafia, and in 5 years O.J. put up a measly 119 catches for 1,737 yards and 15 touchdowns, and that's honestly not far off from what Cooper Kupp had in 2021 alone. This was a very disappointing pick because of the hype around OJ all throughout the draft process. He was routinely hyped up to be the Myles Garrett of tight ends, and I truly thought he could have been a consistent 800-yard, 8-plus touchdown tight end, and he never put up either of those seasons, nor a 40-catch season. A D- grade for Howard. Corner Adoree Jackson from USC was the Tennessee Titans' first-round pick, and what's crazy regarding this draft class is it truly seems like it's either home run or bust, and Adoree is no exception here. He was 4-0 in Nashville and played just 33 games in 4 years, and that's not good to begin with, and then you throw in how he played, which was also not good, and I try to reserve the F grades for players like Taco Charlton, who was released before his third season was even over, and Adoree did provide more for the Titans organization than Taco did Dallas, so I don't want to say they are the same in terms of their draft grade, but in the same sense, it's also like which smell is less bad, but I did at least want to explain all of that before I give this grade, and Adoree's draft grade 5 years later is a D-. Jonathan Allen to the then Washington R-Words is up, and through 5 years, Jonathan has a Pro Bowl to his name, and within the last year, he signed a 4-year, $72 million contract extension and had a 9-sack year, which from the interior defensive line is terrific. His production has been steady, but never elite or top tier. But that's also not to say that Allen is just an average football player or just another guy, because he's not that either. He is a good football player and certainly worthy of a first-round pick. 5 years later, Allen gets an A. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.